Hi, everyone. Welcome to this show where we are again with our friend Crispy. Uh, and I will just put increase a little bit in the volume, and if you want to, it's okay. But welcome. So, what brings us tonight together is to talk about how the Mayan Tzolkin is not astrology. This is very important, I believe, because now that more and more people is connecting with astrology, everything that is related to the cycles, then it can be derived to a branch of astrology, which in this case it is not. So welcome. And dear Crispy, what would you like to tell us about that?
Right. Well, it's amazing that the Maya are quite famous for mapping the universe as we can see it. So basically, our perspective in the Milky Way galaxy, and especially in our small part of the universe, our solar system, they mapped the cycles of Venus and Mars and all of the visible planets and stars extremely precisely to within a few minutes or even within a few seconds of what our modern technology can do. But their calendar, the Tzolkin, has nothing to do with any of that. It's two cycles. It's the 20 nawal or glyphs and the 13 tonal or tones woven together equaling 260 days. And with the research of many people, like one of them in particular, Dr. Carl Johann Kalaman, he discovered that this cycle kind of can be expanded out so that it equals the precession of the equinoxes. So 36,000 of these is the exact length of the precession of the equinoxes, which is approximately 25,647 years. I kind of forget the exact number of years, but excuse me.
Yes.
So our Mayan birthday on here says nothing about any planets or any stars at all. It only says where we are on this map of 260 days, which is a fractal of the precession. But the other thing that Dr. Kalaman and some other researchers have hypothesized is that what this represents, and the precession as well, is the evolution of human consciousness. So that's where your birthday on here can fit into a much, much, much greater cycle. So it's very interesting to me.
It is indeed. And do you think that people can get confused because of the Nahual, which are some of them animal aspects? As we know, the very same word, Nahual, it's
Sure.
about a human becoming an animal. Do you think that perhaps that's the reason why people get to relate the Mayan Tzolkin to astrology, like archetypes being the glyphs?
Right. The glyphs are certainly archetypes, but it's also important to know that so are the tones, the tonal. The numbers themselves have a deep meaning, you can't separate them. So the confusion, sure, it's easy to get confused, But that's really only if you take a brief look, if you just spend a few minutes with it and understand that every human being has a birthday on here, which is consisting of either a number from 1 to 13 and one of the glyphs. So it's quite simple. And then the other pattern, the main pattern that comes through, is the 4 colors. So there are 4 colors of the glyphs. So that means the 4 elements, the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 times of day, and the 4 bodies. So we all have a physical body, an emotional body, a spiritual body, and a thinking body or mental body or psychological body. So we all have those, all 4 of them. But the one we are born on is our primary processing modality. Myself, I'm emotional. I'm a blue glyph. I process things very much through my emotional body.
Yes. Yes.
You are white, so you are spiritual. Your first processing is through the spiritual body. Sean, you are red glyph, so your physical body is the first processing modality. So say the Maya.
You know, now that you mentioned the 4, you know, like as also the 4 primary colors,
Right.
and the foreign grains of corn that Quetzalcoatl gave to the natives, as well as the cacao.
Sure.
You know, all of this quite related to, well, the cube. Not per se,
Sure.
because we have the 6 faces of the cube plus the
Right.
center, the 7th. But when we're talking about a bidimensional form, a square, and if we tune into the DNA and how they fit the 64 codons
Right.
in 3 in trines, in groups of 3, you know,
Yes.
then we get, there are 4 nucleotides. Nevertheless, they are grouped in 3 in trines, and then generating this square full of the 64 codons. And it's wow. So have you heard about, within the Tzolkin, how they, besides the 4 worlds, because I have also seen depictions of the dome, you know, a
Right.
dome with the 4 worlds. How would you describe that? And also, if you want to say something.
I've seen that picture of the dome, and I think it's like the whole Mayan universe, which is the 3 worlds. So there's the upper world, or the heavens, if you will, and they feel there's 13 layers to those. And then there's our physical reality, and below us there's the 9 layers of the underworld, or Shibalba. So those, I've seen that image a few times, and it's very beautiful. Of course, the number 13 is deeply embedded in the calendar itself, and many pyramids have 9 levels, especially Tikal being the most famous, I believe, with the 9 level steps, which is amazing because, 9 to the Maya represents the underworld. So it's like they were building a mirror above ground to represent the underworld, which is very cool.
Exactly. Just before, because you have mentioned that, if we take into consideration the 13 levels, you know, like 7 ascending, and you know, 6 going down of
I
that
use
period.
a lot
Exactly.
in my teachings. Yeah.
If you mirror that, you get a 26, because it's 13. 13 is a 26. And 26 is the numerical value as well for the name Yahweh, or which is Jehovah, and so forth. It's a numerical value of 26. So you see the correlation. So now, for instance, if you take the 9 and the 13, you get a 22. And also,
Right.
it's the 22 letters for the Hebrew alphabet. And they also take into consideration the 7. And
I think the major arcana has 22 cards.
yes,
There's a lot of interconnections going on.
exactly. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, the pictures you've held before remind me of the DNA and the interaction. What is in your discovery and interaction between Tzolkin and the Mayan zodiac and the DNA and the chromosomes?
Right. Well, there's no other system on Earth that includes DNA per se, although the I Ching has the 64 codons, if you want to think of them as codons. But then you've got the human design and the gene keys, which have taken those 64 and put them into basically the traditional zodiac system. They all start with your birthday in the tropical configuration, and they include the standard version, which I think is a little bit out of date personally. But then they apply the 64, the I Ching to it. So I think there's a lot of value in researching all of our birthdays on these various systems and just see what stands out, including the Chinese. I'm an earth monkey on the Chinese system, and that really relates to me. It also is about 5,000 years old, and it's got the 12 animal archetypes, and then they actually have 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and metal. So around the world, there's lots of metal monkeys, right? And fire monkeys, and I'm an earth monkey. So I think, we need to just be open to all of these cultural influences.
Yes.
And one of the things that excites me about the Mayan calendar is that they say it came from the Pleiades.
That's what I was going to mention. So,
right.
Tell us more about that. What you have found out about the relation to Pleiades?
Well, some of the myths say that 8 actual Pleiadians came down to Earth, 4 men and 4 women. And they taught the Maya about the calendar. And I believe, this might be my own interpretation, but I believe they brought corn and cacao with them.
Yes.
I haven't actually seen that written anywhere, but
I do. Yeah,
I feel it.
Yeah.
So those beings, they had children here on Earth. They stayed for a long time. Some of them interbred with the living Maya at the time as well. So there are ostensibly some Maya, and I believe them to be located in Lakamha in Palenque. And I believe they are the direct lineage of the Pleiadians.
You mean by Pakal?
Sure. Yeah, he would have been one, absolutely. And, he was actually, I believe, the 6th or 7th king of Lakamha. His mother was the 2nd queen. His grandmother was the 1st queen, right?
Yeah. You need to book Ahau. I know Ahau would be them, but yeah. Yes.
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 So And then there's the whole myth of a lot of the Maya ascending and transcending and leaving the earth. I think you could say, went to the fifth dimension or vibrated up to. And I believe those would have been the Pleiadians and all of those who they taught well enough to embody the ascension process.
You know, now that you mentioned 4 and 4, it immediately brought me back to some Egyptian papyrus, and also to thoughts, like even the word thought, you know, or the Houthi.
Absolutely.
He talked about the Ogdoath, which were 4 masculine forces and 4 feminine, related to the amphibians and to the serpents.
Wow.
Which leads precisely to Kukulkan and to all the deities, which for me, it all began like recognizing that there were perhaps more evolved.
Okay.
But they didn't adore them in the beginning. That came after, you know.
Okay. Is this the Egyptians?
No, that I'm not talking about the Maya. No, for the Egyptian, they never. Well, at some point they had cults for them. But in the beginning, they were just the galactic community.
Right.
I mean, by Thoth and Isis and Osiris and so forth, and they were just bringing in the knowledge, the seeds of knowledge, as Kukulkan, or also known as Quetzalcoatl. And yet the Ogdoad, which is these 4 figures, they say that's how they created life, how life was created in the beginning, you know?
Sure. Well, there's deep connections in the Mayan culture as well to the serpent. And of course, it is one of the glyphs right there. And that's your Nahual, Sean.
Yeah.
Serpent. Yes. And so many pyramids have serpent carvings on them. And of course, the most famous, I believe, the most famous Mayan pyramid is Kukulkan, where the serpent comes down every equinox. And, you know, to me, that's the most amazing building on the planet, really, you know. I mean, Great Pyramid in Egypt, I haven't been to, but that's incredible as well. I would put them both at the most amazing structure on the planet. Let me ask you, when do you think the Egyptian pyramids were built?
Oh, that's what I was thinking about. that I had talked this before with a friend in another show, that he's the first person that I have heard that has tuned into the same thing of how they were created. And for me, they were created from the holofractographic field. Like, imagine you generate a specific coherent lines or array. It's made of like lasers, and then it's like this holofractographic field, or holographic as it's mostly known. And then you create the mold from that field, and then you fill it in with the material that you're going to use through frequency, being capable, because you know that they say that they melted the rocks, that they levitated them through sound and so forth. Yet the main key of how it was perfectly made, and that's why they haven't been able to replicate it, is because they didn't draw the mold from here. They did it from the holofractographic field, and then projecting it with high amounts of plasma that would only make it capable to generate that level of coherence.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've told Sean I came with that when I was living in Egypt, and
Right.
sometimes I would see the pyramids disappearing, like
Ooh.
literally disappearing in my camera, and we know
Wow.
that the camera captures images that the common eye cannot due to the interferential wave that they are capable to read. So
Right.
through the interferential wave field. So, and sometimes they would be so luminescent, like glowing,
Right.
that they were showing its true nature as a hologram.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was not just me. People who came to see me in Egypt was like, is it just me, or the pyramids appear and disappear? Okay.
Right.
Yes. Yes, and even as the Mayan that we have talked about this, how they would use the mercury to cover all the pyramids in red,
Right.
and then the mica, another luminescent material that would make them glow as the pyramids in Egypt.
Wow.
Yes, yes, yes. But do you want to say something?
Just interested more in his subject in the Tzolkin, but like when he goes back to that, I can ask.
Yeah, about the Tzolkin, I want also to. Well, now that you opened it, why don't you go?
Yeah, give me a question and I'll see if I can field it.
I feel that tuning into it, it seems it gives some other hints and codes into anatomy and a map of the soul. Anything you wanted to say on that and your discoveries?
Sure. Well, anatomy is very much the 20 fingers and toes. That's the 20 glyphs. And then the 13 joints of movement. So wrist, elbow, shoulder, and then ankle, knee, hip. That's 6 on one side. And the neck is the 7th, and then 6 on the other side. And that's where this also maps out onto this, because the 7th column is the central column. It's open, and our spine is actually open. You can see through it. And so there's a lot of overlay between the physical and this map right here. Now, the Maya say that our glyphs are actually more of our soul, and the tones are more of our ego, the physical, the earth-based body. So in a way, you can see the tones as being like the building blocks, of the pyramid. And then the glyphs sort of stand on the steps going up, and they change position every day. And it's really a beautiful metaphor for life. Now, the way forward, my system is called Mayan Embodiment, and the sort of subtitle is Soul Cartography. Well, the only way to move forward is to harmonize the ego and the soul. You can't drop one of them. You can't pretend, oh, I'm only an eagle in the sky. No, you can't. You have to be your ego and your soul. And the only way forward, or the best way forward, I think, is to harmonize them. And that's partly where your guides come in. We all have 4 guides, and there's a tone and a glyph for each of them as well. And then, like I said, we have the 4. If you divide the circular version just into the 4 directions and the 4 corners, the 4 elements, we all also have the 4 bodies. We have all 4, even though we're born on one color. And that means if we're born on white, we have yellow for divine feminine, divine masculine.
Yeah.
And we have white for the future and past. But we still have blue and yellow in what I call the step family, which is you take the circle and do the 4 directions exactly. Those other 2 corners are where you, Isha, would bring in the red and the blue. So we all have all 4. But it takes a lot of work to harmonize everything. And what that really means is taking out things that are holding you back, removing the unhelpful behaviors or addictions or, victimhood, right? Our memories, our childhood usually holds most of those, but not all of them. So as far as, a soul journey or soul cartography, this system to me really has it all. I don't look elsewhere for information, although, like I said, I've looked deeply at all of my other systems, standard zodiac and gene keys, human design, the Chinese. I haven't had a reading using sidereal and Ophiuchus, and as you pointed out the other day, Cetus, right?
Yes.
I want to trade readings with somebody who does that.
Yes. Well, that's really fun when you even put your source code with it, your geometrical body. It gives you precise dates on everything. So
got my source code right here.
Yeah. Well, let's find that person so that we can put it together and do an amazing reading.
Yeah, I know. I keep asking people on YouTube and Facebook, do you do sidereal with Ophiuchus? And they're like, no.
Well, the right one will come. But
Yes.
that leads me to something, because now that you were talking about all of this, there are 2 things. The first thing, do you think that center part of the Tzolkin, because I can see a torus, the inner part of the torus, and the center would be precisely the singularity.
If you can picture it going this way, you can see that it's actually 3D, and it definitely is a torus. Like the energy's coming in and looping from both sides.
Yes.
It's definitely a torus.
It is. And the funny thing is that if you get the frequency, the pattern of the frequency of 108,
right?
Let's say hertz,
sure,
the pattern will give you that Tzolkin.
Whoa.
And that leads to something else. Yes. Yes, that leads to the 108 Buddhas.
Sure. Yeah, that's a big number for the Buddhas.
Yes, and the 9 cubes. It brings us all the way to the 9. So, well, now you have answered one. The other one, for instance, when you were talking about all of this, I could see and I could, feel in the Mayan translating all this information. And I have my own perception of how they reached to it.
Right.
You being someone who knows so much about what each day represents, what each day aligns to, and so forth, how do you think they tuned into all these numerical values as algorithms? I know you have mentioned the Pleiadians, but
right.
Do you think that at some point, because that's how I perceive it, it could be like this cube that is holding all these patterns, from this holographic or holofractographic field, and they were tuning into as algorithms and codes, and all embedded in the body, as you mentioned? Or how do you perceive it?
The cube is part of crystallization. The cube is a crystal, and information is stored in crystals. So there's definitely a connection there. But I think you might be more, the torus shape might have more information, because this is definitely flowing. It's not static whatsoever. And that's why the DNA kind of image is so important. And again, if you were to look at that on a 3D plane, you would see like a spiral that, we have an image of the slinky. Yeah, I'm sure you remember those. Maybe Sean more than YssaH, slinkies, right? So time is flowing, And the other very cool thing about the Mayan calendar is it's actually the order of glyphs is red, white, blue, yellow, right? So red is east. White is north. Blue is west and yellow is south. So it's actually going backwards. Red is spring. The next day is winter. The next day is autumn. The next day is summer.
Just as the precession of the equinoxes.
And that maps up. So what that's saying is, like, right now is the center point. And the calendar, even though we're going forward in time on a 3D linear time perspective, this is actually going backwards in a seasonal fashion. It goes from sunrise, the next day is midnight, the next day is sunset, the next day is noon, the next day is sunrise. So this is going backwards. It's mind-blowing.
That's how time moves, backwards.
Right.
Yes.
And there's nothing else in the world like this. You can't go look at human design and say that or anything else. Like, this to me is fifth dimensional. That it's not of this earth. That's my feeling, right? So for me to follow this every day and to teach it is to be literally of this earth, but not of it, on this earth, in this earth, but not of it. My mind is multidimensional just through the following of this calendar.
Going into the fifth dimensional process, and thank you for bringing that up.
Right.
And you mentioned ascension process. What do you think, based on your research, is some of the stuff the Mayans would do in their ascension process in achievement, as well as from your perception?
Right. Well, from my perspective of my lifetime, what the ascension process is raising our vibration. Okay. And then, so what holds us down, what lowers our vibration, if you just want to think of it from the chakra perspective, number one, fear, anger, rage, that's a very heavy terrorism. And so therefore, if you engage in the news, if you follow the news and you're watching war, then your vibration is low. You're not going to ascend. You can't. It's not physically possible. Next level up is the sacral chakra. So if you are engaged in or following or watching negative sexual behavior, like disempowering sexual behavior, a lot of people watch a lot of pornography that's really disempowering. A lot of it is empowering, and a lot of women are making more empowering, porn, if you want to use that, or any other Hollywood movies. But so many movies are trapped in this war and sex. And then you move up into the solar plexus, which is self-control and then other control, so all control dramas and aggression and passive aggression, aggressive aggression, all of those are what pulls the mind, the body down, lowers your vibrations. As soon as you get into the heart, which is love, of course, that brings us up in vibration, and that has to be the new ground floor, as it were. The root, the sacral, and the solar plexus issues have to be solved, resolved, and harmonized. Like, they're part of us. We always will have the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus. They're not bad or evil or wrong. It's just that the negative expression of those is what's been holding us down for, let's just say, 2,000 years. It could be much longer. So the Maya, if you overcome those three, what that means is you have no fear of, being homeless or without food or without shelter or without culture, and even attack. Even though the Maya had war, it seems to have been more civil in a way. You know what I mean? Like, it was men going in to fight other men. They would take men as prisoners. They wouldn't hack up little babies, and there was no blowing up of villages. You know what I mean? So children were not affected by that. So let's say the root chakra concerns were largely taken care of. Sexuality, there's very little information about sexuality and procreation among the Maya. I've heard that modern Maya in Guatemala, at least the farmers, often make love during the day in their fields. They don't do it at night, because at night they live in a communal hut with like 8 people or 12 people. So they're not having sex with their grandmother and their grandfather and their 2 older children and their baby right there.
Like in medieval times, during the month.
The women make a lunch and bring a blanket and go to the field where the man has been working in the field, and they have a picnic and they make love in the day under the sun in their field. That's what I've heard. Got that in a couple books over here. But I generally think there were accepted roles for the male and the female, maybe more specific in the Mayan culture, where women would do certain things and not do other things. Women did not plant corn ever. Men planted, harvested corn, brought it to the women, and the women would, process it and cook it, right? So there were defined roles, more so than we have in our society today, but people felt, I believe, comfortable in those. So basically, the red, the root, and the orange, the sacral, probably covered. The solar plexus is all about power over and power under, and self-control again, and then your relations to other people. So for some Maya, they transcended those 3 lower chakra concerns and were operating from a place of love in the heart chakra. So they had love for their mother, their father, their children. They had love for the food. They had love for the jaguar. They had love for the serpent. They had love for their leaders, right? And they were watching the stars at night and connecting with them. They were all following this every day. They all knew each other's Mayan birthdays, and they would talk about them, like women would go down and get water from the lake or river and talk to each other about their children and their husbands and how they fit on this. This was a deep, deep, deep part of their culture, which can tap into the higher chakras, definitely. But it's about all of them, really. So the ascension process, and I think what we're talking about with the Maya, I've never seen it written elsewhere about other cultures, perhaps in some Tibetan Buddhist small groups ascended together. I don't know. But there's definitely, if you look for it, some record of the Maya disappearing en masse, like 10,000 people just gone. There have been archaeological digs that in a city or a town or wherever, where they will find food in a pot, like ready to be cooked, and it's just there, and people are not there. You know what I mean? They can tell by what was happening when these things were abandoned or left behind, that in a normal day-to-day life, people just left. So that's mysterious and beautiful, and it's potentially true. Definitely some Maya did not. There are millions of Maya alive today who are still right here. So it's really it's mysterious, and I think it has to remain that way. I like to believe that it is a potential for humanity if enough of us are together sharing this vibration. And first of all, we have to believe in it as a potential to ascend. And if we are feeling this shared empathy of love, perhaps there's chanting, perhaps there's music, perhaps there's magic mushrooms or other psychedelics involved. I don't know. But the Maya definitely did use mushrooms, certainly, possibly some of the toad, the DMT, and other herbs. They also did fasting. They did days of fasting, and then they would do these rituals, right?
Yes.
There's proof of they used to take magic mushroom brew and insert it anally, right? There's proof of this, because they were trying to bypass the stomach, which might, regurgitate this before the person could reach that level of ecstasy or whatever it is. So fascinating culture, and a lot of the information about them was destroyed, as we know. So we may never know for exact fact about all of these things, but there's enough information to put together the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, now that you mention them disappearing, as we know, there are like different theories.
Yes.
That whether they are underground and just went into another dimension, or they really went to Pleiades.
Right.
And I knew from connections with the common stream archaeologists,
right,
that they say that their level of exploding the nature around them would lead them to big periods of dryness in the earth. So they were relocating from one place to another to find water sources.
Right.
I mean, of course, everything is a possibility. However, when you get a civilization that is so advanced, not only technologically, also spiritually, then you're bringing the wholeness. And of course, the universe responds to that, and that we can call it ascension, we can call it, like quantum leaps and so forth. But I can see the mechanics, the quantum mechanics of the boards in their pyramids.
Right.
You know how they are like keyboards, and they each one of them has a specific tone and a specific frequency, and
Right.
they would also consider it that each temple was a consciousness. So they would even name that and put a crystal, a jade, or a green stone in a very specific part of the temple. So they were alive cities.
Sure. Living city, absolutely. Yeah, I know the archaeological perspective is very 3D. It's very, has to be factual. It has to be science-based. And they did slash and burn agriculture, and they just destroyed their environment. So therefore, they all had to flee the city at once. That doesn't make sense to me. In a way, it's kind of taking something that may have happened 2,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago or 800 years ago and applying today's mentality to it. Why would everyone leave Chicago tomorrow? Like they're trying to figure out something that's very mysterious and probably multidimensional with a 3D perspective. So they might be right about some of it at some times. I think population, it's hard to say how many people lived in Tikal and then at what time, it's hard to say how many people lived in Chichen Itza. What year are we talking about, right?
Yeah.
Of course, Mexico City was very highly populated, Tolan or Tulan, Teotihuacan, right?
Yes.
So it's mysterious, and I'm comfortable with leaving it that way. I don't know.
For me, it's fascinating how even, for instance, if you see the shape of the eyes of the Mayan and you see the shape of the eyes of some Egyptian, they are so similar. So similar. And even, for instance, here they have these festivities that they have this big like a person in a costume with this huge beard. They were not referring to the Spanish.
No.
They were referring to beings that came before the Spanish, and that's why they thought the Spanish were those gods that came in the very beginning. But it's talking about the Apkalu, how I remember it, which is the people from the water, and then we're related to Lake Atitlan, what we have shared in other videos. Put it all together.
Yeah. Very similar. Well, I went to Mexico with my wife, who's Japanese, and we went there. We flew into Cancun and rented a car, and we drove around for 10 days. And many, many times she was like, "Oh my God, that guy looks like my uncle." So she kept seeing facial features, the shape of the nose and the eyes and things of the Maya, who reminded her of her Japanese relatives or people she knew. So there's definitely some interconnection of the beige peoples that's different from the whiteys.
You know that they used to show for instance, all the Mayan with this big nose, like an
Yeah.
eagle.
Yeah.
Well, that's not all their noses. They have, it's a device. I saw it when I went to the museum. So they
Device.
mark how they are marking a difference in between the nose bridge and this elongation. And they
Wow.
have found in the Bolon Ik Palace,
Right.
the ninth wind, speaking of the nine, they have found artifacts that were placed
Whoa.
in
Interesting.
the nose. So yeah, and other many artifacts that have been found. But you know, now in relation to the nine, because we were talking about that and the
Right.
nine wave and how
Yes.
the importance of the nine for the Mayan and for every ancient cosmology
Yes.
is, as you mentioned, Xibalba. You know, if we go to the Popol Vuh,
Yes.
the text of creation for the Mayan, there, for the ones interested in astrology, there is a lot of astrology encoded in the Popol Vuh.
There is.
Every character represents a constellation.
Right.
And when we talk about the Xibalba, for me, this is quite related to the entrances inner Earth to
Right.
the Earth's nucleus, like a
Sure.
black hole, and that
Right.
then interconnects to the other extreme of the black hole beyond the dome, beyond the simulation matrix. So
Right.
that's why you needed to master the tests from the Shivalva, like it's like the initiation of the nine,
Yeah.
in order to be worthy to going through those wormholes, you know?
Right. And there were the 9 lords of death, you know, and there was a lord of like pus and a lord of broken teeth, you know, and like these, I don't know them all, but there were 9 lords of illnesses, which also represented recovery, right? So that's the thing that the Western people didn't understand when they interpreted the Mayan culture. They first of all, they called it hell, huge mistake. You can't associate Xibalba with hell. As soon as you do that, you destroy what it actually represents.
Yes.
And they thought that, you know, it was like 9 demons only, but that's not the case, you know. The 9 lords of Xibalba need to be addressed if there is an illness. And that's what the shaman do. They go into Xibalba. And a lot of Maya use caves or the cenote, of course, which is like an entrance to the underworld. And either through fasting, chanting, mushrooms, all 3, or whatever, the shaman does a soul retrieval where they go in and talk to the 9 lords of Xibalba. Who do I need to speak to here? What is the issue with my client? Who have they offended? You know, what part of our, you know, religion, our culture, our spirituality have they offended, and how do we make amends? And then they do, the shaman will do that on behalf of their client, and their client will often be healed instantaneously, right? So even that is a multi-dimensional aspect to the Mayan culture, which is shared through all shamanic cultures over the world. But the Maya have their definite, you know, the 9 lords of Xibalba, right? It's not random. Like
No.
they know what to do. They know how to approach. They do the rituals. They know what to expect. The shaman in particular.
For instance, in the Vedic astrology, when they talk about the Navagrahas, which are the 7 planets, including the moon and the sun and the 2 nodes of the moon, they
Right.
address to them as these very intense consciousnesses that if you don't master them, then
Right.
you cannot master this reality and actually generate a transcendence or
Right.
illumination. Because even to take into consideration the 2 lunar nodes,
Right.
that's a powerful energy. You're talking about the full influence on the molecular structure of water within. So
Right.
I have been tuning into a lot of this information and the importance actually to make it clear, as I once told you about Ishbalanque
Yes.
and HUNUH,
Yes.
Ishbalanque being a woman,
Right.
also clearing out that the 9 consciousnesses of Shivalva are
Right.
related to the wholes of Amenti, are related to how master our level of consciousness in order to go beyond fear and
Right.
remain in a space of love.
Yes. Yeah. And I
So,
think there were rituals in Egypt as well to take the initiate into, the catacombs beneath certain pyramids. And I'm forgetting where this might have been happening. Abydos, perhaps. And they would make them go under these in a watery tunnel where there were crocodiles. Is that
Komombo.
okay? Right.
Yes.
And they have to deal with their fear, or you can't move on to the next level of training or instruction. And that is a big part of the Popol Vuh as well. They taught their children their creation myth for thousands of years, saying that those sacred twins had to go down and do the tests with the 9 lords, right? And so the framework there is that these 9 lords of death, or rebirth as well, illness and recovery, basically are testing us. And if we fail, you lose, you die, right? But if you win, you are reborn. So that's a big part of the Mayan culture and the Mayan myth, that you will be tested. And if you win, yay,
Yeah, you often can't get away from the tests of life.
You cannot.
Waves that come. You might as well become a better surfer. The shadow work.
The shadow worker for sure.
The darkness within, turning the dormant stars into bright light.
Right.
And with every facing of that within you, it is the fertilizer for the garden of happiness. It is the without death there isn't creation.
Right.
Destruction without creation, which is the body's breaking down of what is not meant to be there anymore. But for other forms of life, it is a garden, and so it and this is a garden for us. The suffering, the pain, the death, the illnesses, because they are the same thing as health. They are a sliding spectrum that lead us to the opposite, which is lack of health or in full health.
Right.
Like what is ascension? Like what do they call in the Mayans gods in their perception? But mortal to immortal. So there's tests for everything that is a limitation in our world, or a descending, because the descending also shows the pathway to the ascending.
Indeed.
Like the baby, 9 months, and it's also related to the 260 days, which is the cipher. Yes. You know, that also something so beautiful that I see in the Tzolkin is if every person represents a day, well, of course, not one per person, you know, it like many people represent one of those squares of the wholeness.
Right.
That is saying that within our DNA, within our Taurus, they are all part of me and of him, of you. You know, we are all embedded inside our
Definitely.
universe. And that is so beautiful. This is why I was asking you, how do you see it? Because for me, it's in every one of these tones and in these glyphs, they are anchoring like the DNA of every person in the earth and putting it in harmony and aligning it to cosmic forces that are actually disposed in order to prevail and go beyond that simulation. That's why you were talking about the Taurus, because for me, like that incubation, because they talk about the incubation in rituals. In rituals, Mayan rituals, they place a baby in like if a mother is pregnant,
Yeah.
and the baby is going through like not doing very well inside the mom's womb,
Okay.
create a cube made of wood, put it with a spiral representing the umbilical cord made of copper in front of an altar, and they
Wow.
would pray because they know that's an incubation, and through that it's that we move through that I mean the Taurus, you know, that we move our body as the Taurus in its full potential that it is, and capable to double it as a double Taurus.
Right.
4 directions, 8
Right.
directions, and then unfolding. Yes.
That's awesome. I did not know that about that Mayan ceremony. And you reminded me of another one that I do know about with newborns. What they do, and I believe this is still happening today. When a newborn is about 13 days old, the mother will take it to the other homes where there are newborns, and by this I mean still breastfeeding babies. They all share babies.
Wow.
All right. So a newborn baby will get breast milk from perhaps, let's say, 6 other women. So on a biological level, what you're getting there is antibodies from people in your same village. But on a social level, you get this motherhood of all children. All mothers feel all children are theirs. So, you know, that's just freaking me out right now. Like, it's actually,
Yes.
I just, you know, what are we missing in our culture right now? It's, whoa.
Well, there has been such a big enhance in the amnesia. And I believe that the time system is quite related to that because it truly amplifies the amnesia.
Right. That's another reason for me to sort of not reject, but at least downplay the 12-month zodiac that's attached to the Christian Gregorian calendar, because to me, that whole calendrical system is divorced from nature. It's not real. Like, why are we saying Augustus right now? Like, oh, Augustus Caesar, hey, Julius Caesar. What the fuck is that? And then the next month, the 9th month, is called September. 7th month is the 9th month. That's just the way it is. What the fuck is that? Like,
I know.
Ignore that. That's why this is even more important to me.
We really, I don't know it. I feel as passionate as you about putting out the true cyclic system.
Yeah.
And beginning with the beginning of life in spring, not December.
Yeah. No, December. It's the first day of the year, and I've got another 6 weeks of snow. No. I think spring equinox is the first day of the year. To me, I feel that.
Me too. For me too. Yes.
Feel that.
Yes, it is.
I love the 13-month calendar for that. Like 13 by 28, wonderful. Great system. You need one extra day every 3 years, and every 4 years you need 2 extra days. Like the leap year is real. We need 366 every 4 years. That's fine. So I don't think the the banks and the governments would just say, yeah, great idea, everyone, let's do that.
That's why it requires the level of initiation that they would do. No fear.
Right.
No fear. Because like if we start doing different kinds of exchange,
right,
if we continue to create all these groups, like people going to live out of the grid, in their geometrical villages, and well, we are not fighting anything. We're just focusing on the new model that actually we want to live in. So I believe this is what will be required from us from now to 2030. And like speaking about the ninth wave and the eighth and the seventh and surfing that you were saying, there's I don't know the name, like groups of 13, tercenas in Spanish. But that now we have just come into a high tide,
Right.
So all the way until next year, August. So if you put all the information together, you can see definitely a pattern of how things will be flowing around. Right. And that's when we get to choose and do action.
Yes.
Thank you for everything that you're doing in bringing out that information.
Well, it's my pleasure as well as my duty, I feel, but it's absolutely my pleasure. I just love the vibrations of this system. I love teaching them. I just did a video yesterday about the interrelations and the way that all of the signs and the glyphs and the tones go together. I think that's really important, know your parents' Mayan birthdays and know how that relates to you. Know your children's Mayan birthdays and know how that relates to you. Your lovers, of course, your friends, just to understand reality from that level. Whether or not you believe it's Pleiadian doesn't really matter. You cannot, however, argue with the fact that this replicates DNA and it also maps out the precession. So it's extra dimensional,
Yeah.
So learn the systems, my website is very easy to navigate. You can just put in a birth date and get lots of information easily.
Would you write it, or I can write it in the chat so that people knows? It's www Mayan embodiment, right?
Yeah, that's it. Mayan embodiment, no dots, no nothing. MayanEmbodiment.com.
Okay, great.
I didn't even know we have a chat. Oh my God, that's so cool.
I know. This is the first time I'm using this. That's why I put the intro on the video and on all of that.
Hey, yeah. Now, by the way, this is your voice we're listening to in the background, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you record that in Egypt?
Yes, not in any temple in my house.
Yeah. Excellent. Yes. Lovely.
Yes.
Delightful.
Thank you. I will be doing more. I am now implementing frequencies that are coming from neurons.
Wow.
From the microtubules of the neurons, generating that point of connection along with my voice, and it's having amazing results. Like people truly feel how there is something going on in their brain and much more. So yeah, I will be putting out more of that. Thank you for pointing it out.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so do you want to say something, ask something?
Oh yeah, sure. Wanted to go into for the audience out there, what you think the ninth wave brings in comparison to other waves, and all the I think this is kind of a two-part question. Interested in the different types of energy origins having to do with the glyphs and dates that you've been able to observe. This you said like red snake, a blue monkey, the other.
Yeah.
Do you think those come from is an animal imprintation or the star constellations it brings, the sun, the earth, based on your awareness?
Right. Well, many of these glyphs are animals. Some are not, obviously. One of them is a knife and a mirror, This one is Gaia herself. This one is the mask of the hero. And, there's many different influences for the glyphs. It's also important to point out that, the Mayan region is about 5,000 kilometers long. And there were different interpretations at different times for what the glyphs meant. So you might get one book and it'll say one thing, and then a different book will say a different thing. And we kind of have to incorporate them all. As far as the ninth wave, what especially Dr. Kalaman is teaching is that it's a frequency that is happening that is very empowering to tap into. In a way, it's kind of beyond the Tzolkin, It's bigger than the Tzolkin.
Yes.
This does fit into it, of course, but what he says is that the ninth wave is happening like a frequency, and also at the same time, the eighth wave is happening like a lower or longer frequency, and the seventh wave is still there much longer. If you just picture sine waves, and it's like notes on a keyboard there. So it's like the whole scale is now being played. It's all happening at the same time to tune into. He has a great website that you can find out what day it is. And basically they go above, like you said, we just started a day phase, and then it goes below. So each one has a night phase. And we're just entering a day phase, so in the light right now, which exactly coincided with day one of the Tzolkin 2 days ago. So, I think that by tapping into the Tzolkin, it is going to also enact the eighth wave, the ninth wave. And definitely, if you're interested, go to his website. There's also a man, Sean Caulfield, who's on Facebook and has a website, and he has taken Dr. Callman's teachings and sort of made them more accessible in a way. Sean is an accomplished artist as well, so he's coming very much from the left-handed, right-minded, intuitive perspective. And Dr. Callman is very logical. You know, he's got the right mind and he's got all the logic worked out perfectly. So, you know, if you're going to research those, I'd say include them both, Sean Caulfield and Dr. Callman, to fully understand the ninth wave. But the main point of it is it represents the evolution of consciousness. So that's why it's a little bit on, you know, this is very much physical. This is very DNA, very earth-based, 20 fingers and toes, 13 joints of movement. And the ninth wave is kind of like, you know, your ninth chakra in a way. It's like way out there.
Yeah, I love how they describe that it's like the sixth wave passed already, you know, like
Right.
now we are only going to everyone to the ninth wave. No, everyone is going in their own rhythm, and all
Yes.
the waves are interconnecting, generating all this beautiful symphony that respects everyone's will.
Yeah, and I believe that happened 12 years ago on December 21st, 2012 is when they all synchronized. And so then they're all together. And I believe up until that point, and actually Dr. Callman says it was October 28th, 2011, was the precise date that they all interlocked and then began to all start playing out at the same time. So you do have the first wave going very slowly, and then right at the same time you have the second wave going a little faster and the third wave. And so it is all accessible to us now vibrationally. And you know, it's similar to the ascension process. If you're worried about your safety and health, and if you're trapped in a fear-based reality, you can't tap into any of this. And if you've been doing the shadow work and embracing your dark side, and you've worked out those lower three chakra dramas, then you will be able to tap into this. It's a beautiful process.
It is.
Did I answer your question, Sean? I kind of forget your second part of it.
Yeah, the nine waves and like what you've observed or gotten information on what they do and what they're known for, and then also.
I'm not an expert. I honestly, you know, I can tell you pretty much anything about this, but the ninth wave, I am not an expert at all. So I just.
Okay. So with the glyphs and energy origin, based on what you've said, it seems like it's like archetypes, maybe some genetic links through the different animals, or maybe in the environment, the factors of concepts and consciousness, and like how the tarot does the hero's journey and
right.
Like,
well, there is a flow from the first glyph, which I call sunrise. And then the next glyph is breath. The next glyph is night. The next glyph is seed. So we've got these non-animal glyphs. You know, the first glyph is like, to me, my experience of it is the earth, Gaia herself, waking up to the fact that the sun is impregnating her and life is created as a result. That's what I see in this glyph here, this red glyph. My camera's going backwards, so I'm having trouble.
So like nature emanates from a foundation of manifestation building towards the archetypes of consciousness.
Yeah, definitely. And my understanding of it is that, you know, this planet, Gaia, came into this planet like we come into our physical bodies. She lost memory for perhaps 2 billion years. She went into the physical body, and you know, it was a burning hot rock in space. There was not even any water on the planet for, let's say, 1 billion years. I don't really know. And then maybe 2 billion years, the life started to grow, and she woke up and realized, wow, I'm alive. I'm in this body now, and there's life. You know, the plants are growing, there's seaweed, and there's little grasses growing on the surface, right? That's how I interpret the first day, you know, which was 2 days ago. And then the breath, the second day is like, wow. And so spirit enters the physical body. So she became aware of her own breathing process. And then the next day, which is today for me and tomorrow for you guys, is the night. She slept. She's like, wow. And she started dreaming. And then we come into the fourth day, which is the seed. So more plant life and more growth. And it could be physical for humans as well, the seed. And then the first actual animal totem is the fifth day, the serpent. So the reptilian serpentine energy gets born. And the very next day is death, or death and rebirth. So the first animal comes along, and the next day there's death. So we understand that there's life and growth, but then there's death. The day after that is the deer. So the 4-footed animals take place. And then there's the star, which I call star seed. So we acknowledge that there's a connection between the stars and human life. And the next day is called offering. We begin to pray. You know, we realize this is a sacred space, and we have to pray. We have to honor, you know, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the animals, each other. The next day is dog. Yay, happy, love, loyalty, also rules, also ranking, you know. A lot of energy in the dog glyph is about politics and ranking. And there's absolutely love is there, but there's also laws and rules, you know, and that's the 10th glyph. So we've now gone through half of the 20, and we've gotten into this community necessitating love and laws, right? Next day, monkey. And it's time for play and time for art and creativity. And then we have the 12th glyph, which is the traveler. And we start having quests. You know, we want to start taking pilgrimages and going to various sacred sites. The following day is corn, the 13th glyph. So it's corn, cane, reed, bamboo. It's about the spine. It's about the staff of authority. It's about the family. It's definitely more of a masculine energy. Like I said, the Maya, only men plant corn. They bring it home. It's also part of the Popol Vuh myth. The hero twins planted corn in their grandmother's homestead before they went down into Xibalba, and they said to her, you know, if the corn dies, we didn't make it, but if the corn lives, you know, we're going to be fine. And the corn lived. The 14th glyph is the jaguar shaman. So finally, after all of that growth and development, comes shamanism. You know, it wasn't there from the beginning. And a lot of regions just call it jaguar, glyph jaguar. And, you know, I depict the glyph this way. But it definitely represents shamanism. And then the next glyph is the eagle, which is vision, you know, vision from above. And then we have wise one, which brings shamanism and a higher vision back down to earth. And the first key code word of the wise one is forgiveness. So now we're looking at, you know, things in our lives, in our cultures, in our society that we need to forgive. And we've got Gaia, the 17th glyph. Then we've got the obsidian mirror knife, that sharp-edged glyph, right? Which represents, whoa, there we are. Represents healing again. It's white, it's spiritually based. And, you know, the Maya, the shaman used the obsidian mirror for scrying is the modern word, but to sort of go into the other realms. And the warriors used the obsidian blades, of course. And so it's about cutting cords, cutting ties with that which does not serve. And the next day is called Rainstorm. It's about divine femininity, the sacred feminine roles in the society, the healer, the nurturer, the mother, the sister, the best friend. And then we come to the 20th, which is the hero's return, you know. So it is definitely a journey, a 20-day journey, starting from sunrise of just Gaia recognizing she's alive, and then going through all the animals and humans and society, and then ending with the hero. And so, yeah, there's a huge amount of metaphor in the whole process. Yeah. And 13 tones also carry the journey, right? So there's a lot of processing happening, and it's all related to the evolution of consciousness, certainly. You know, and you look at your birthday, it's like, okay, here's me this time in this lifetime. And, you know, YssaH, you mentioned knowing that we are all on here, right? Everyone is on here. We are part of the whole. And the most famous Mayan mantra is In Lakesh Alakin, which my understanding is, I am you, you are me, we are one Godsciousness. We are all a fractal of Godsciousness. There is no other. We all need every single day on here. You can't exist without one of these being present. You know, this is all of us. That's my understanding.
Beautiful, thank you. This it's something to be watched again. All this explanation that you give about the glyphs, it's so beautiful. Thank you. And I'm even thinking about the next topic that we can talk on the show, because you mentioned Palenque, that you have this feeling that it was Palenque, you know, that first place where they like the most important one to say it somehow, this first place.
Possibly.
I'm sorry, what?
Possibly, yes. I you know.
Yeah, it's what you feel. It's what you feel. And for me, it's very important, because actually it talks about the Bolon Ik, which is the ninth wind, which can also be a wave.
Sure.
the ninth wave. And there are many mysteries of Pakal that are yet to be, undercovered.
Right.
The area there, there are so many things that they have already taken.
Oh,
And even with this, you can have an idea of everything.
right.
The president of Mexico will go there to live after he finishes.
Whoa,
It's, that
really?
that level of importance it has. So
That's
there is something there, and I will be tuning into it, and then we can do another show on that. You can also be tuning into your memories.
My favorite place so far.
Yes, yes, likewise.
there a couple times. I've done a ceremony there. I think I mentioned to you I got kicked out
Yeah.
by the guards after I started my ceremony on winter solstice 1999, which was 13 years to the day before the end of the 13 Baktuns. But I know Pakal felt my presence there at that time. And he was like, all right.
Go hero.
Yeah. Go get it, crispy.
Go Blue Eagle. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. As always, it is a pleasure. Are there any words that you want to say before concluding this beautiful transmission?
Well, I do feel that all of us are on the path to ascension. I believe that the evolution of consciousness includes every single human being. And just like the 9 waves are all happening at the same time, some of us are up here, and that doesn't mean we're better than the people who are still stuck in fear. Everyone will ascend eventually, whether on this planet or not. But we are here right now, and things are exciting. They are getting very high vibration. I think it's quite likely that there's a lot of destruction politically, socially. Things are breaking down. Systems that have been in place a long time are very unhealthy. They were built on shaky ground. And so, expect that. But know that it's all part of the process. It's all necessary, and just stay in your heart chakra. Don't give in to fear. Don't give in to lies, and just be in love.
Lovely. Can you mention how people can reach you, the upcoming projects, different channels you have?
Yeah, I just have my website, MayanEmbodiment.com, and then on Facebook, same thing, Mayan Embodiment Astrology. I have the astrology. And my email is mayan.embodiment.astrology@gmail.com. I'm sure we'll put them all in the chat here, or is this, when it goes elsewhere.
Any up and coming projects, books, etc. you want?
My book is in the works. Actually, Dr. Kalaman is going to write the foreword to it. I just sent it to him about 2 hours ago.
Wow.
Just read it before he writes the foreword.
Wow.
So,
And you mentioned something about soul cartography.
Well, that's my sort of subtitle to Mayan Embodiment is soul cartography. And that actually came through a woman named Eva Marquez. I did her reading. She, where is she here? She is a Pleiadian channel who wrote this book. And after I did her reading, she had a vision. And, we did some talking about that. And she saw these Mayan elders, and they were telling her that I'm doing good work. And I forget where the terminology came from, but the phrase soul cartography evolved out of our conversation of her describing her reading to me. So that's what I feel that this is. It's a way for each of us to embrace and embody both the ego and the soul. And it's what we need right now. There's other ways to do it, but this is definitely.
That's a good point. I found that the soul branches off the mind consciousness, which branches off the ego, and then all the little containers of things to come up against in the world as it tries to bring us out of survival into thriving. And then many of the merging and healing and wholeness and embracing. I also feel that in cartography being mapping out the soul, it would be interesting to see how one would map out through what you've gained in knowledge, the evolution process of the soul, because there's an untapped field of how to evolve out of that big source of energy in the solar plexus that is this container for memory, the kadaba, the other layers of the memory, the past lives, the container of power, the superpowers, and some other interesting things that barely anyone knows how to navigate this and explore. And the vision work and vision questing into it too.
Vision questing. Now, one thing just on a very Mayan level, if you look at your birthday every year, so when you turn 1, when you turn 2, when you turn 3, you'll start to see patterns come through this. And then if you have, for example, a car accident, and the date of that, or if you can remember the date you met somebody. Like I remember I met my wife on April 7th, 2001. That date on here is called empowering, which is tone 5, seed. And then she and I, when you add us together, make a seed. And we are tone 12, which is understanding. So we met on empowering seed, and together we make understanding seed. And that's another layer to this. You can add 2 people together. You guys are the 5th glyph and the 6th glyph, and that makes the 11th glyph, which is the monkey. So you 2 make a little monkey playing together. And the monkey is art and creativity and performance. And, then you add your tones together. Sean, you're tone 3 and Isha is 1. And so that makes 4. That's a stabilizing monkey. So you're not just like this freak out little monkey. You've got the 4 elements, the 4 directions, the 4 colors, very stabilizing. So together your art and your creativity is a stabilizing force. So there's so many layers to this. That's so exciting. I just love it.
And we will continue talking about that in upcoming shows.
Yep.
So, do you want to say where people can find you?
Sure.
Yes.
I'm Sean Bond of I'm Sean Bond of PsionicLeague, PsionicLeague YouTube, PsionicLeague at gmail.com if you want to reach me with PSI. And I'm doing workshops, mystery schools, video products of abilities. You can reach me for healing, clearing consultations, and depossession, and resolving things, and getting rid of blocks, and unlocking dormant abilities. Lots of superpowers on video in my YouTube site that you can unlock and unfold in your DNA. And we'll be doing powerful trips to various places, like in Mexico, maybe as well with Crispy, and look forward to that. And if you want to get cool readings and stuff, send us an inquiry into trip. You can say at the top, trip inquiry, like to Mexico, and to either of our emails or Facebook or something. How shall people reach you?
I will write the name of my website in the description of this video, because the name is kind of complicated. It's not in English. And actually it's related to the Mayan, and I didn't know when I chose that HUNUH. It means one, the primordial feminine force. So
Right.
yeah. So well, anyway, online courses about plasma body activation, which is precisely what the ancient ones were showing through the illumination of their body. If they were capable to do all those initiations, it's because they had a big understanding, knowledge, and actually actioning of that level of evolution in their physical body, interconnecting to higher forms of consciousness, because that's plasma. It's a high level of coherence, and we're capable to do that. And it results into regeneration, rejuvenation, free energy, enhancing your energy, amplifying your consciousness. And I could go on and on and on and on all the benefits of this. And also to other courses online that you can tune into in my page, all related to these high forms of technology coming to, it can unfold the best version of yourself through a high level of spirituality, that where there is no difference in between it and the science. It's one. So uh, thank you again. Thank you. And yeah, looking forward to our next encounter. A big hug, heart to heart, and to your beautiful family as well.
Yes. Smash that like, leave a beautiful comment below showing Crispy some love and support, and tell if you want to have him on again, and share this video far and wide, and go subscribe to both our channels. What's your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is Mayan Embodiment.
Yeah, and get a reading from him. It's really beautiful and feels lovely.
Yeah,
I do have a sliding scale. There's my website explains I have 4 types of readings, and 2 of them are very inexpensive, and then I do a much more in-depth one, and then I do a couples reading. So it's all explained on the website.
Beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us in this live transmission, and until next time. HUNUH.
Lakesh Alakim Namaste.
Mm-hmm.